Happy Friday. This is Beyond the Fold. I'm Lauren Eisenlohr, Marketing Director for West Michigan Woman, and this is our opportunity to go beyond the pages of the magazine and tell a deeper story. Today, I am incredibly geeked to chat with the one and only Jackie Green. You likely know Jackie from the Gray and Green Morning Show on Hot 105.3. And what you may not know about Jackie is she is also, as of recently, the Mrs. Michigan American 2021. Jackie, what's going on?
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited. It's funny, when I proposed to the team that I was going to talk to you, I was like, oh, Jackie's my friend. This is going to be fun.
And digital friends are friends.
I know, but then I realized we really only chatted through social media, and I feel like we're close.
Right, you do. I do too. And I saw you that one time getting my nails done. I thought, is it weird if I say hi? Is it weird? Is it weird if I approach?
For a while, we had this like really long Instagram chat going on, and I told my sister, I kind of feel like we're dating on the side. It's a little bit fun.
Instagram is the best way to be friends.
I know, seriously. Okay, good. I'm glad you're feeling it as well.
Oh, totally.
Okay, good. It's not just me.
Not just you.
So other than trying to boost my ego, we'll get to the heart of the matter here. So 4 years ago, you wrote an article for West Michigan Woman, hence coming on Beyond the Fold. You've done a bunch of stuff with West Michigan Woman, which is awesome. But 4 years ago, you wrote an article entitled, I Am Intersex and I Am Here. And I know you've told this story several times on a variety of different platforms, but for those who haven't heard, can you explain what it means to be intersex and what makes you intersex?
For sure. So intersex is kind of a broad umbrella term, and it's been used, especially the last 5-6 years, to describe anyone with a difference in sexual development. Now, there are over 40 different conditions a baby that we know of that a baby can be born with that could cause them to fall on that spectrum. And while intersex is something that some people identify as, it can also just be a trait that you have. So for me, I was born with complete androgen insensitivity syndrome. The best way for me to describe it, because it can be kind of, it's a long term, is as in the womb, as a baby, none of us really have gender yet the first so many months, right? Well, when the hormones wash over you and your gender is decided, my body didn't respond to any of the testosterone given. So whether it was going to be male or going to be female, my body has it's like a repellent almost. So I automatically externally developed female, but internally I couldn't build those reproductive systems that a typical female baby would have, or male baby, due to not having the correct proper amounts of hormones. So I didn't have ovaries or a uterus or fallopian tubes or anything internal. I just had internal testes in the place of ovaries. And those were actually producing all of my estrogen like an ovary would.
Oh, well, that's good news, right? That they were producing estrogen?
Yeah, so typically that's good news. They use a process called aromatization, and that is where your body automatically converts the hormones it's producing to a usable substance. Now, for me, that was estrogen, because my body responds to estrogen. It does not respond to testosterone. So side effects of that for someone with CAIS would be no body hair. I don't grow any leg hair, armpit hair. It's because testosterone is what causes that to grow.
Yeah.
And I think that's a common thing, too, is that people don't realize women have testosterone like men, just less.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I was at. So when I was 15, doctors told my parents that the best plan of attack was just to remove the testes because they could cause cancer. And I use quotes because it's not really been proven. I know a lot of people with CAIS, among other conditions, who have had the same surgery or opted to not have surgery.
Yeah.
And there's never been a trace of cancer. I mean, you're not cutting off my breast because I could get cancer. And what it boils down to is a history in the medical community of wanting boys and girls and not wanting to have to deal with the in-between. And the in-between is much more common than biology than people want to face and deal with. So it was 1999 when I had that surgery, 2000. My parents didn't know. And the doctors told them, we should just get rid of them. We'll put her on hormone replacement. It'll be fine. So I had them removed at 15. They didn't tell me what they were doing, really. They just said I had cysts on my ovaries and we had to take them out. And then I was on hormone replacement till this day. I'm still on it. Wow. And so for someone like me at 15, that pushes your body into like a menopausal state
Okay.
because it takes my natural estrogen that I had and forces me onto an artificial one when I was producing enough before. So there's a lot more that goes into it, but that is my personal condition. Like
Mhm.
I said, there are 39 other conditions that you can be born with that are different from mine.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's so interesting. So, if you had never had that surgery at 15, do you think,
Mhm.
would you feel differently today in any way?
I don't know. I do think that there's a level of when you're different, no matter what makes you different,
Yeah.
you wonder in the back of your head, what would life be like if blank?
Yeah.
So if you were adopted, you always wonder, even if you love your parents, what would I be like if I wasn't adopted? If you know, and I think that goes true for having an intersex condition. I always wonder if those weren't gone, what would I be like? Would I be taller? Was I done growing? We don't know because we took my
Right.
hormones. Would I have bigger boobs? I don't know. And there's a lot of unanswered questions when it comes to that for me,
Uh-huh.
but I'll never know. So I try not to dwell on it too much. I think if I could have a time machine and make the decision myself,
Mhm.
I think I would have kept them. But you know what? 15-year-old me might have been like, ew, get rid of them. I don't know what I would have done, but I would have liked the choice.
Absolutely. And so at 15, you weren't telling people about this condition, right? At what point did you start feeling comfortable telling your story?
So it was kind of confusing when I was really little. My parents were I was diagnosed with this as an infant. So my
Okay.
parents knew as an infant because they had done a blood test and saw some anomalies in my chromosomal makeup.
Okay.
And that led to doing some testing, and they discovered I had CAIS. And it does run relatively in my family. I have other relatives with this, but
Hmm.
that's their story to tell.
Sure.
And it's not something we ever talk about ever. Ever. We never did, really. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that was partially me or them, but it's just not something we spoke of. I just knew someday I might need an operation and I won't be able to ever have children of my own biologically.
Mhm.
So I ended up having that surgery. And I remember because they had told me when I was little, you might need a surgery someday because the doctors had told them that. So
Mhm.
I wasn't fully aware of what was happening. I remember I kind of convinced myself I'm having a hysterectomy. I don't know where I came up with that term. I must have seen it on TV, but I
Sure.
would say it
Yeah.
kind of waiting for people to confirm that's what you're having because I knew something was off about
Yep.
what was going on with me. But everyone was too afraid of, I think, my 15-year-old mental state and what this would do and what was appropriate to say to me that they would just kind of, yeah,
Sure.
kind of,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
go, yeah, pretty much. So I kind of lived a bit of a lie for a while. That was in ninth grade. So I mean, people would ask, I missed 4 weeks of school. So I told people I had a hysterectomy, I had cysts. The stories got outlandish, I'm sure, over the year, if I'm being honest. I'm sure I made up some doozies about why I was in the hospital, but I didn't fully understand what happened, why it happened, and the ramifications of it till I was like 29 or 30 years old.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't know when you met your husband, but I'm wondering, how does that come up in conversation, or do you feel the need to approach that subject early on in the relationship? Does it even matter?
I'd like to say it just doesn't matter because in a perfect world, we love each other and that's all that matters. But it does matter. I can't have children. And there is a lot to talk about in terms of that. And
Mhm.
while it's personal, it's hard when you're developing a close personal relationship with someone else, an intimate relationship,
Sure.
not to tell them. So I've always been really vocal about the fact that I can't have children because I've known my whole life. I mean, I think my parents sat me down and told me, you can never have biological children, maybe 6, 7 years old. So I've always known I can't have
Okay.
biological kids.
Yeah.
So it's something that I told you wouldn't have to be my friend very long to know. I just kind of told them,
Yeah.
especially because there's others thing like I don't have a period.
Yeah.
So you'd, now in adulthood, it doesn't happen as much, but in college years in high school, that comes up a lot. Like girls talk about that all the time or ask for, they need something. And I never had it and I never knew how to join the conversation. So I was always very blunt about the fact that I couldn't have kids.
Yeah.
So Jim, my husband, he worked with me at the time and I think he kind of just knew from me telling people there. And then I just kind of gave him more information as needed. And he never reacted weird about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Because it's not like it comes up on a daily basis. I mean, there's no,
Right.
you
But
know.
a lot of doctors ask that same question. Every time I'd see a new doctor, I remember when I was like 22 and I started going all by myself without my mom and dad. And
Yeah.
that's when they could kind of divulge more information. My parents weren't there to protect me from whatever they wanted to say and whatever verbiage they wanted to use.
Mhm.
And that was where I had the most confusing years, I'd say, because I thought I knew my body, but
Mhm.
then I'd go there and they'd use, internal testes and these words that were very, very scary to a hyper feminine female who had never heard of anything like this. And I was just like, what? No,
Yeah.
no. And it freaked me out. So I did talk it out a lot because I'm a talker with anyone that would listen. And I think the doctors always say, does your boyfriend know? And they made it seem as a bad thing, like you might not want to tell him. And that always really bothered me. So I'd almost test him with it.
Yes.
Like, that doesn't bother you, does it?
Yes. I
And
would
it,
do the exact
it
same thing.
didn't. It's never bothered anyone I've been with.
No, no, God, and puberty is hard enough. So
Right.
to add in that level, that's insane. So now let's fast forward. You have a 4-year-old daughter, Greenlee,
Yes. Yes.
and we had babies around the same time, so we can totally relate at what it's like
Oh,
to
100%.
raise 4-year-olds. But your sister carried Greenlee, right?
Yeah. So my sister, I call her my little sister, but I'm 36 and she's 34. So she's not that little, but she was our gestational carrier, gestational surrogate. We went to the fertility center here in West Michigan.
Yeah.
And she came to me and said, my pregnancy was pretty easy. She had a baby before us and said, I'm not opposed. I don't even know if this is possible of trying this. And I was like, I don't know if it's possible, but let's try it. So we went, and the doctors there were so nice, and they got us in and they told us it's going to cost you, but it's possible.
That's amazing.
And now we have Greenlee.
Yes. Yes. So I think I read this somewhere, but correct me if I'm wrong. Did you have to go through an adoption process because
I
she?
did.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's something that, I'm glad that we're talking about now because I didn't talk about it at the time. I remember I was so talked to death about the subject. And
Sure.
I was working in news at the time. I'd
Mhm.
already had a bit of some hiccups with the pregnancy. We did 3 or 4 rounds of IVF to get my sister pregnant with our baby.
Yeah.
And we had lost a few along the way, which happens, with IVF and any pregnancy, really. And we were originally pregnant with twins for Greenlee. And that's really common with IVF. You insert 2 embryos, and the odds are high of both of them taking. And that
Mhm.
happened to us. But we didn't discover that we had lost both till much later in the pregnancy, like 22 weeks.
Wow.
So I had gone on the news and told my story. I had told all our viewers, we're having twins and they're both girls. And I was so excited. Well, I found out later at a different ultrasound, we had lost one of the twins really early in the pregnancy. And because of some missteps from the ultrasound tech at the time, it wasn't caught. And basically, so I didn't really ever have 2 girls. I had 2 little embryos, and then I developed one, which was Greenie. But
Yeah.
because of that, I had talked and talked and talked, and then I was just so emotionally over talking about it. By the time we got to the nitty gritty of adopting, I just was like, everyone knows I have her. I'm going to drop it. But that said, back to your question, in the state of Michigan, surrogacy is actually not legal. Because a surrogate and gestational carrier are 2 different things. So probably a lot of you saw on the news the couple that had the twins, and they were making them adopt their own babies from a surrogate. Well, that's true. And if you try to go for a pre-birth order, which is what you would try to do if you didn't want to adopt,
Okay.
the judge has to say, yes, I'll give you a birth certificate now with your information and the baby's information, even though the baby's not born yet. So that's assigning a birth certificate before they're even born.
Okay.
Most judges, at least in Kent County, I've heard of, won't do that. I don't know what the laws are around it. They just won't do it. So we decided instead of spending any money, we're just going to adopt. So technically, we did do a legal adoption from my sister, which is funny because our daughter is not even biologically related to my sister.
Right. Right.
So we did have to do the home visits and everything. We already had her at home with us, and it was wild ride, and it felt very scary thinking that our fate of us and our baby after all this work was in the hands of an adoption person who I didn't know. And I remember her coming over to see the house, and we had Greenlee, and I was giving her a bottle, and I was so worked up because I forgot to clean, and the house was trashed. I mean, it was
Well,
trashed.
you have a newborn, so
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. And I had my running clothes everywhere and Jim's work clothes and his piano and his drums. And I'm like, oh my God, we've got this adoption lady. She's going to take my baby. And just having a full on panic. And she was so kind about it. But it did make me a little more passionate about infertility as a whole and the whole process we make people jump through to adopt and to go through surrogacy.
Wow. Did that make you angry through that process?
At the time, it made me more sad than anything, like another reminder that even when we make it as easy as possible, my sister jumps in to save the day. My
Right.
whole family backs us up. We did a fundraiser. My whole family helped us pay for it. Like everything just came so naturally. And it was like the one thing I knew I could never have, I finally get to have. And it just felt like, oh, by the way, you still don't legally get it. And you need to jump through one more hoop. And it felt like that last hoop was just like, ugh.
Exactly.
So when I heard about that family in West Michigan, my heart was with them. It's scary, but
Mhm.
I mean, I think it's more just protocol. If I'm being honest, I don't know,
Okay.
but when they walked us through the adoption process, they said we're just following what the state of Michigan makes us follow, and they said we're not taking your baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's
So
still scary.
it's absolutely scary. Do you think those are laws that could be updated? I,
Yeah. So the laws initially, now I don't know them by heart,
yeah.
but they were made in the 80s, I believe, and I think it was to protect unborn babies was the original plan. And with pre-birth orders, you're basically deciding a baby's parents and deciding a baby's life and gender and everything else before they're even out of the womb. And I
Mm.
think that is kind of where it started. And it was more to protect these parents and
Yeah.
protect these babies than anything else. But now science has changed. And that's where things kind of get different is with science changing and medicine changing and us able to have kids in a non-conventional way, a different way,
Mhm.
we should update those laws.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, speaking of Greenlee, she is your little mini me, and she's totally following in your footsteps. What has life been like since she started twirling and doing pageants? Are you loving it?
Yeah, I like it. I hope
It's
she
like,
likes it. My
yeah.
my niece is well, my niece is almost 9 now, but she used to do baton twirling too. So I originally got Greenlee in to twirl with my niece because my sister and I grew up twirling together, and I thought, well, that's just so fun. My
Yes.
niece ended up dropping out of it, and now she's a horseback rider, and she's amazing. But my daughter seemed to still really like it, so we kept doing it. Now she'll be 5 next month.
Yeah.
She's done a couple competitions. She thinks they're really fun. She likes the glittery costumes and doing her tricks. So we're gonna keep doing it as long as she likes it. I have fun with it.
For sure. And you're like, oh, thank goodness you like this because I need to look
Exactly.
for this.
But then you have the back of your head as a parent where you're like, I'm not pushing this on you, am I? You want this, right?
I know. I know. I already have my daughter. She's 2. Well, she'll be
Yeah.
2 in August. She's not even 2. But my friend owns a dance studio, and I already got her registered for fall.
I
And
wondered if you would do that as a
oh,
dancer in your past. We did the same thing. So Greeley started dance at 2. She was the youngest in the class by a lot.
I know. And my friend's like, I'm not changing her diaper. I'm like, I think she'll be fine for 45 minutes.
You're
Okay.
gonna sit out. You sit, and this is what I would do: is I would sit out there, and if I saw like, oh, she had a blowout, I just run in. I'll just take her, and I
Yeah,
just take her out
exactly.
of the room.
No problem. We got this. She's
Right,
got to start
right.
young, pointing
Yes.
feet. We got to work on these things.
Her PKs are just gonna be on point.
I know. I know. So, how long have you been doing pageants? Speaking of,
It's funny. I think I was just talking about this yesterday.
yeah.
I think I started when I was 14. I was really
Oh,
young, but I was like you. I wasn't near as good, but I was a dancer and baton twirler too. And I ran cross country and track. So I did a lot of stuff. So I
yeah.
was never like the best at any of it, but I loved with dance and baton, the costumes and the dresses and all that stuff. I saw there was in like, it had to be in the late 90s, a talent competition in the mall in Portage, where I'm from. And
Okay.
they had to wear a dress and model and then do talent. And I'm like, Mom, I have to do this.
That is me.
Yes. She was like, no, honey. And I go, yes, I'm doing it. So I wore a junior bridesmaid dress that was hideous. I was like in 8th grade. I curled my own hair. My bangs were like this.
That was hot, though. That was hot.
It was
Yeah.
horrible. I
Yeah,
put it in like a tight bun, like a tight 90s bun
for
with
sure.
like curls coming off. And I went up there. I did my baton solo. It was horrible. And I got 3rd place. And I was addicted to it ever since.
Well, get it. I mean, now you're Mrs. Michigan American. So,
Right. There we go. It
yeah.
worked out
I
15
mean,
years later.
for sure. So, was there ever a point in your adult life that you thought about, okay, I'm good, I'm going to retire? Or have you always been like, what, I'm going to do this as long as I can?
Yeah, I retired for a while. So I got to
Mhm.
college and I actually was on a cross country and track scholarship at Ferris State University. So when I ran there, I completely gave up pageants, baton dance. I didn't do any performances really. And
Yeah.
when I got to my end of college, I ran out of eligibility with the NCAA, but I wasn't done with school because I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I jumped into the theater program and I got back on stage. And the next thing you know, I was like, I'm going to do a pageant. And
Mm.
then I was back in.
You got the bug again.
Yep.
You had to do it. Yeah. Yeah. And once you're a performer, you have to fulfill that piece of you at all times
It's
in some
It's
fashion.
funny. Yes. Like once you are used to doing that stuff on stage, and even with pageants, for me, it's more than just going on in my gown. You do a lot. Like you usually do a speech on stage, you do interview, and it's just
Yeah.
a lot of, I have more fun, I feel like sometimes planning like what I'm going to do, what I'm going to wear, what my hair is going to be like than any of it.
Yes. Yeah. So I want to know the difference, other than you're married, the difference between Mrs. America and Miss America. How do they make those two different?
Okay, so those are actually two different organizations,
Oh,
even.
they
So the
are.
Miss America organization, MAO, you'll
Okay.
hear of. I think you have to be, and don't quote me, 25 or younger. It's
Okay.
it's like a college age thing, like 18 to 24 or 25. And they do talent, and they're the ones that they just got rid of the evening gown and they have red carpet wear, I think. It's
Okay.
in Atlantic City and it's much more scholarship based for college kids.
Okay.
Mrs. America started in, oh gosh, on the spot, like the 30s, I think, the 20s. And it started actually as like a housewife competition, like baking. And it evolved over time into a, well, these women have way more than that, to a, more like a pageant, a full blown pageant. And now the last like 50 years has been going strong.
That's incredible. So, do you do the same types of things? Like you do a bathing suit section, you do an evening gown. Is there a
Yeah,
talent? Okay.
there's no talent.
Oh,
Thank the good Lord.
the talent was you got married, and
Yeah, my talent is someone wanted to marry me because I'm annoying.
that's so terrible.
Right. But no, you do swimwear, you do evening gown, you do interview, and interviews 50%, and then you do onstage question.
Okay. Okay.
A lot of times most women do it to promote whatever platform they are working at the time. My platform is intersex advocacy and working with intersex youth to help them not feel like I felt when I was 15 and feel less confused and have more choices in their body.
For
So
sure.
it's been a fun way to educate other women and other people around the country with my condition, along with other conditions that fall under that intersex umbrella.
And do you feel like since you've been telling your story and you've used this as a platform, have you seen more people rallying around you and their own stories in any way?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of it. I've been blessed enough to be asked to be on the LGBTQI healthcare consortium,
Yeah.
and we work in Grand Rapids, working to make healthcare a safer place for LGBT, the alphabet kids, basically. And that's been a wonderful experience, meeting people and telling my story, and then meeting others. And then I've also Facebook. Since writing for you guys, I've had at least 5 or 6 mothers from around the state come to me that they just learned their infant, newborn, whatever age child has my condition or a similar condition. And they, first thing they found was my article on your site.
Mhm.
And they wanted to know if they could speak to me because they don't know anyone like this. And if there is, then no one's talking about it. So
Right.
that's been more the biggest, I think, for me, like positive outcome of writing for you guys is it came out and I was really, really scared. Like, oh God,
Yep.
all these people I grew up with are going to read this. All these people that think they know why I can't have kids are going to read this. And I'm so scared. But then everyone was so positive and kind. And then being able to help these other mothers make informed decisions on behalf of their children has been the best.
It's got to feel almost like a weight is off your shoulders a little bit, that you can
Yeah.
just be out with it, and then fulfilling in a way to be
Oh,
so
yeah,
supportive to others.
for sure.
So what's next for Mrs. Michigan American?
So I get to go to Las Vegas in
Yeah.
November. We compete on the national stage. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
And other than that, I'm just going to try to do as many charitable appearances as I can do and have fun.
Yay. So all throughout the year, you will travel and meet people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So I'll be traveling, meeting people. Now, the Mrs. America Page system, they branched into two. It's hard to explain if you don't know pageants, but I'm going to do my best here, guys. They
Yep.
have two national systems, Mrs. America and Mrs. American. And they basically found some states had so many women applying to compete and had so many stories. They're like, we can't share them all. we can't get all these women to Vegas to compete and have that opportunity to go on a national stage that's like a lot of times televised and filmed. So they decided we're going to open this up and have two. So 50 women will compete at the America pageant, 50 women will compete at American, and basically the two highest scores at each state get to go. So a close friend of mine, Katie Maskey, she won Mrs. Michigan America this past weekend, and so she's going to compete representing the state of Michigan. So it's really cool that both of us, with totally different stories but equally important, get to go and share our platforms.
That is awesome. And does every state have two?
Yep.
Oh, they do. Okay.
Yep, all 50 states have two.
Okay. So when you go to that pageant, will they have two then Mrs. America and American?
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
good.
So when we're there, it'll be like a long weekend, and Mrs. American will happen on the Saturday, and Mrs. America will happen on Sunday.
Perfect.
Yeah, we're excited about it. Katie and I are close, and she knows volunteer work. Like, she gets her hands dirty, and I'm not kidding. That girl volunteers around this state all over, and I'm so blessed to be able to hang out with her more. We're close friends already, and I'm excited.
It'll be a fun year. Fun.
It will be.
Yay. We need that after 2020.
Right.
Thank
you.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, let's talk radio real quick before we don't have to go. There's no breaks here. I mean, we can do whatever we want.
Wait, we don't have to get to commercial? Wow.
Nobody's going like this in the background to us, so we can do whatever we want. But so let's talk radio, because I think that's probably how we knew each other originally, was in doing radio. So I'm wondering for you, I found it was very hard to embarrass me on air, just because you hear so many things when you're in radio, and it's difficult to shock you, and you just kind of move on. However, there were some moments where I'm like, oh, why did I say that? Do you have any of those moments?
The moments where I did that were less like embarrassing stories or silly things I did, because like you just said, you forget you're talking to people.
Yeah.
You're in there with usually one, maybe two other people and a microphone. And sometimes I forget. We've been told how many times, any given moment, if you are on the radio in West Michigan, about 30,000 or 50,000 people are tuning in. So that's a lot. And I still don't get embarrassed. The things that embarrass me are when I accidentally totally just mess up, like forget what I'm doing, and I'm on the mic and I think I'm sounding professional, and I realize, like one time, I think it was like my first week, I cracked the mic. I'm all excited. I'm here on Hot FM. I'm off of news. I'm back in radio. And for some reason, I went on and opened with our station's competitors' call numbers and letters.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. A station I never even worked for, ever.
Mm-hmm.
Never been there, never worked there, don't even know anyone there.
Yep.
I turned off the mic and went,
You just shut it off.
And we're going to song. I was so embarrassed.
I did that one time in Dallas. I was reporting traffic, and I reported the wrong city to the station. So, and I just kept going.
Yeah, just keep going.
I was just going to act like this is what I was supposed to say. And as soon as I got off, the producer's texting me going, what the hell are you doing?
Right, what are you doing? I've done it too. So I work at two stations. I'm on the Gray and Green Show. I host with Rachel, obviously, on 105.3 Hot FM. But I also do 10 to 3 most weekdays on 97 LAV, and that's a classic rock station.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've done a weekend shift for Hot and gone on with 97 classic rock, 97 LAV. This is Jackie. And not know it until someone texts me and says, you were on Hot FM saying it's classic rock something or other. And I'm like, oops.
Well, maybe sometimes. So do you feel like you have an identity on the radio and then an identity outside the radio, or is it all one and the same?
I think there was a time when I really fought to have a radio identity, and I thought that was super important when I started my career. Like, I've got to be like two me, like my radio me and my me. But over time, as I got more comfortable on the mic and comfortable in my job as a general, they just started, and now it's just all one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing different from me on the radio to me in real life is that I have my husband's last name.
Sure.
Right. You know?
Yes. Yeah. And I completely agree with you. In my early 20s doing radio, I had like a real identity crisis almost of who I was and what I was saying on the air, and then what I was doing and the role model I was and what I was representing outside of that. I really battled with that,
I
honestly.
bet. And you, I mean, you even went by a whole different name,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
that had to have been confusing too.
Yeah. In fact, my husband, when he moved to Grand Rapids, he and I knew each other in high school. And
Okay.
so he moved to Grand Rapids. He saw that I was on the air and messaged my on air name, which was Nicole at the time, on Facebook. And he
Yep.
goes, I think you're my friend Lauren. I'm not really sure why you're
What's
going by.
happening?
Yeah,
Why are
exactly.
you going by Nicole?
Yeah, he's like, if this is the real Lauren, do you want to hang out? And the rest is history.
So we have a mutual friend that I believe went to college with you, and now I can't remember, but she would always refer to you as Lauren. And I was always, fun moment, a big fan of yours. I would listen to you. You were on when I was interning in college on a different radio station, and I
Okay.
would listen to you on my drive in. And I just thought you were so cool. Like, I was like, she's so cool. When I found out your name wasn't Nicole, I was like, I've been lied to. I didn't even know you. I don't even know her.
That's so funny. Yeah, I know. It took a long time for people to start calling me Lauren again,
I
especially
bet.
in Grand Rapids. A lot of people still do call me Hug It, which is fine. I like that.
Right.
And I'm going to embrace that, especially now as a married woman. I like to hold on to that piece.
That was your maiden name, though, right?
It is. Yeah.
It is your maiden name. So at least it was your name. Like
Yeah,
it was.
exactly. But we spelled it differently because,
Oh,
yes, at the time I was coaching as well. And so I really wanted to separate the two just because of some of the topics that we would talk about on air. Now that I'm looking back, I could have handled that better. And I think I would
right.
be better in explaining everything just because I'm more comfortable in myself. But at the time, as I was trying to figure out who I was and what I was doing, it was very difficult. So I completely separated the two.
And I think that brings on an important topic right now. I did the same thing. I coached for a really long time. I coached at Allendale, East Grand Rapids, Northview. I was the cross country and track coach at all those schools.
Mhm.
And I never differentiated my coaching self, myself, and my on air self. And it would rub some parents the wrong way if they listened to the station and we had any kind of adult content on.
Mhm.
And it asked the question, who's wrong?
Exactly.
Because I didn't do anything wrong.
Exactly.
I'm on a station that's not aimed at a 10-year-old. It's not.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's when you start to have problems where, well, is it my fault that you let him listen to it? Or is it
Right.
yours?
Right. And as long as I could fall back on, well, that's my character on the radio,
Yep.
then I felt okay about that
Yep.
in
Yep.
some way. In some way. So it's something that people always ask me when I was on air. I'm sure you get it too. So we'll just address it. Your schedule, what time you have to get up, what's the hardest part, what's your day look like now?
So I'm going to be brutally honest with you. When I worked in news, my schedule was horrid. I hated it. Anyone working in news, I woke up at 2:30. I had to be there at 3. I had to drive this truck all over God knows where at like to be on at 5 a.m. I was tired all the time. So jumping to radio, I thought, well, I'm used to this morning thing. This has been awesome. I don't have to be
Oh,
there till
right.
5. I get there like 5, 4:45, 5. We're not until 6. We do a lot of prepping the day before. So, I'll go to bed at 8:30 or so, 9, just because I'm like old lady and I'm tired now.
Right.
I get there around 4:45, 5 o'clock. Rach and I get ready. We do the show, and I'm usually home at like noon.
That's great. Good.
Yeah, I've really kind of gotten used to this schedule.
You've seen the worst. You've seen how bad it could be. So 5 a.m.,
Yes.
like, oh my God, I'm sleeping in. This is great.
Right, right. But like, some of my other coworkers, like Rachel, I always give her such mad props because she actually has some side jobs through other markets that aren't in
Mhm.
West Michigan,
Mhm.
but she does them from here. So she has to get to work 45 minutes before me. And I'm always like, oh, you got the bad end of the stick. Like I
Yeah.
walk in with coffee, like, good morning, Rach. And she's like, I need a minute.
Well, you two are so phenomenal on air. I'm such a
Thanks.
fan of the show. I was so excited to hear that two women were going to host a morning show because for those of you that don't know, in radio, that's pretty much unheard of. It's almost there's like a formula for a morning show that you have like the funny guy, you have the host, and then you have the girl that keeps everything all PC and whatever it is, like the old
Right.
school formula. So you guys cracking that and being the two-woman show is so awesome. What do you and Rachel want for the Gray and Green show? Like, what would be ideal?
I think our biggest goal is to just keep expanding and keep sharing the people of West Michigan's stories. I think that we surprise ourselves each time we come up with an idea that we want to talk about and we see the reaction from our audience. This week we talked about a listener wrote us an email that they were struggling because their 14-year-old came home and said they wanted to go on a diet. And they didn't know how would you talk to a 14-year-old girl about that? I feel like she doesn't need to lose weight. I don't want to instill unhealthy, eating habits in her. I'm so freaked out right now. I don't want to address it and I don't want to say the wrong thing because this is crucial. The calls we got from parents who either dealt with that with their kid or were the kid that dealt with that from their mom and dad back, years ago. It was really, it helped me as a parent see that when my daughter hits that age, there is a right way and a wrong way to approach things like that, especially when it comes to body image and how to be healthy and what's important when it comes to that. But it also showed the impact you can make just by letting people share their story.
Yes. Yes. No, that's awesome. And when you guys first started the show, did you receive any flack at all, either from the industry or the community, because it was a 2-woman show?
I don't like to say we received flack necessarily. Like people weren't like, good luck, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think we did get a lot of people say, well, you sound too much alike. How will people know you apart? And that was something that rubbed me the wrong way from the first time I heard it. And it's, no offense, guys, it's always from a man. Because here's the thing, how many radio shows locally can you name that have 2 or more men and no one tells them, you know what, we might not want all 3 of you men on there. I might not be able to tell you apart. We're 2 different people. You can still tell us apart just because we're both women.
That is ridiculous. And your voices sound so different. They really do.
And it's the most common thing we get. I mean, we got it a lot until Rachel and I both lost it. I mean, lost it. No one has said it to us since.
Good. You went off on air?
Yeah, on and off air.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's great. So last question. I asked this to a lot of people just because I'm curious. If you could grab coffee with any woman in the world, who would it be?
Oh, my. Okay, this is going to be out there.
Do it up.
Can they be dead?
Sure.
Oh, Lucille Ball.
My gosh.
I love Lucy, and Rachel teases me about this because I really love Lucy. I've read her book. She just was a bit of a pioneer, really.
For sure.
And she hosted that show. Her and Desi Arnaz weren't even married when they hosted their show together as a married couple. And I just feel like as a woman who's already probably considered less than just for being a woman, she probably had some stories.
Oh my gosh. I bet
overcoming adversity was huge for her, I bet.
Yes, and she would tell it in such a funny way that
she'd crack you up.
It'd be a long, funny lunch. You'd laugh so hard.
Yes. You would go home feeling good.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And you'd wear your bright red lipstick because she would.
Of course.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Jackie. I seriously could talk to you all day. I realize we've been talking for almost 40 minutes now, and I'm like, where'd the time go?
I know.
But this has been super interesting. And just know that you are so loved in this community. And the Gray and Green Show, I think, is absolutely phenomenal and speaks volumes for women and is such an inspiration. So just want to say thank you for everything that you do.
I was so excited when you reached out, and I'm so happy to be here, and thank you so much.
Good. And like, if you could keep being my girlfriend on Instagram, that'd be
of course.
Good. Good. Well, make sure you catch Jackie weekdays from 6 to 10 a.m. on the Gray and Green Show, 105.3 Hot FM. And like I said, I'll catch up with you on Instagram. But thank you, everybody, for watching. This is Beyond the Fold. Until next time, cheers.